going on, everyone? Crypto Glenn back here with another Bitcoin update. If you're like me or anybody else in the crypto space as of late, you've kind of been wondering what's been going on with Bitcoin. You see here we've got our chart pulled up, and you'll see that over the last, I'd say 2 or 3 days, Bitcoin has really just been moving in sideways in this consolidation pattern inside the symmetrical triangle. It's perfectly been respecting this diagonal upper level of resistance that we have charted out here. We had a couple false breakouts, but for the most part, it hasn't really been doing too much. And as a trader right now, this is one of the times where you need to be extremely disciplined, keeping tight stop losses. And even if you start to lose a trade, again, take it from me, do not engage in revenge trading. Sometimes it's just better to wait for the breakout to see where exactly Bitcoin is going to go. So with the symmetrical triangle that you see here, Bitcoin could pretty much go either way. It could break to the upside, it could break to the downside. With a symmetrical triangle, you never really know. If you wanted to use historical data based on the formation of these candles and how it actually entered into the symmetrical triangle, this might in fact tell us that Bitcoin is probably going to move to the downside. There's a lot of liquidity here that is just right for the taking. We actually just took out an area of liquidity here on the buy side. I believe this was yesterday. And right now, again, Bitcoin is just kind of consolidating sideways. So you see here, we've got a couple fair value gaps that have been marked up on the chart here. These were plotted just yesterday. A couple fair value gaps on the 45 minutes. So if we actually take a look at that, and if we were to zoom in here, you'll see that over the past couple of days, Bitcoin has not really been respecting these fair value gaps at all. Again, this is just kind of, to me anyway, providing instance that says Bitcoin could be moving to the downside because you've got resting liquidity, you've got imbalances with buy side liquidity that need to be filled. And so again, that's one reason why I think the price definitely needs to come down and take out these areas of liquidity. Also, if you go back to, these 4 hours, just kind of taking a look at this, Bitcoin has just pretty much ran away from its 20-day moving average. Anytime that you have that distance between price action and the 20 moving average, is called extension. And when that starts to get a little bit too far out of whack, price usually moves down to meet it or consolidate sideways to allow this 20 to catch up. Those are the only two ways that a moving average can actually catch up with price. Either price has to come down or it's got to consolidate sideways long enough to allow the moving average to catch up. I know that we've got this decent area of liquidity here at around 73,919, and it's a juicy area of liquidity. Again, I just kind of take a look at all this area of liquidity down here. You got resting liquidity here. We talked about the fair value gaps, more resting liquidity down here. I just, I see things that suggest that Bitcoin could be poised for a move to the downside. The other thing that we've been taking a look at here is on a number of occasions, it hasn't really been looking too good for the Bitcoin ETF. You see here that Grayscale is still pretty much selling off the supply that they have. And I've been looking around and I'm hearing a lot of content creators talk about what's been going on with this. The reason why Grayscale is selling off, I think they've got it's either like $1 billion or maybe just over $1 billion worth of Bitcoin that they're selling off, is because back in the summer of 2022, when Genesis and DDC and all those other companies went belly up thanks to what happened over at FTX, the judge that's working that bankruptcy case just made it so that they can start liquidating some of these assets to make a lot of their original creditors whole. So that's one reason why you're starting to have so much sell-off from the Grayscale, because Genesis was heavily invested in Grayscale. So if the judge says, hey, now you can actually sell some of these assets to make some of your original investors whole, well, they've got to liquidate some of their positions. So I believe that's one of the things that you're actually starting to see here in the market. It's not, hearsay that, companies are leaving Grayscale because they've got cheaper fees. That might be some of it, a very small portion of it. But I think what is really happening here is, again, you've got an organization that has just been given the okay by a bankruptcy judge to liquidate some of their assets to, in fact, make some of their original creditors whole. So if you're looking at this chart here, we've had a number of days: 154 billion, 326 billion, 261 billion, 94 billion, 51 billion, where the outflows have actually been in the negative. We've actually had more outflows in the Bitcoin ETFs than we've had inflows. Just yesterday, it looks like we just kind of rebalanced and started to see more money flowing into the ETFs versus out. Obviously, this data here for today, March 26th, is not going to be available for a couple of days, so we'll just kind of have to wait and see how that shakes out. Again, if we're just kind of taking a look here at what the data is telling us, we've got a lot of overbought activity happening on the weekly, a lot of overbought activity happening on the 12-hour, the 4 hours just kind of starting to curl down. And just kind of take a look here at the fibs. If you're trying to see exactly how far can Bitcoin go down before it starts to move back up, you might see somewhat of a shallow retracement that you see here at the 786. Looks like Bitcoin has in fact respected it before it might try to move back up. But again, just kind of taking a look at where we're at in terms of being overbought or oversold. This could be a situation where Bitcoin decides it wants to make a shallow retracement before pushing back over here to the upside to maybe take out some of that top side liquidity that we saw at about 79,300 or 79,900, excuse me. If in fact some of those oversold values do in fact come to fruition, you could potentially see Bitcoin move down to the 618 here at around 68.2 before starting to push around and start to move back to the upside. If it's a steep retracement, could in fact go back down to the 66 or maybe even the 65. So these are all levels to watch, but as it stands right now, it currently looks like Bitcoin has been just pretty much respecting the 786 here. So we'll just kind of have to wait and see exactly how the 4 hour continues to play out. I know the daily in itself doesn't really look too bad. It's actually kind of hanging out in neutral. If you're a trader and you're interested in looking at shorting this, you're probably trying to see exactly if in fact price does come down, exactly, you know, you're going from the bottom to the top, exactly how far can it run back up before it starts to come back down. And again, if in fact that does play out, you'd be looking at coming down to the 618 here at roughly around 66,429. So again, this is a very tight range. You're gonna have to keep your stop losses tight. There's not a whole lot of volatility that's going on in the market right now. If you were to take a look at the volume, it's less than what it is at around this time last week. Keep a tight stop loss. Don't revenge trade, and just really sit back and wait till your trade comes to you. Again, if you want to play the symmetrical triangle, you want to in fact try to figure out, okay, when exactly do you need to be taking a position? Obviously, if you break to the upside, you want to wait till at least half of that candle is above the resistance, or you want to wait until you have a retest of that resistance, see if you can flip to support and see if the next continuation candle is in fact pushing up to the upside. If not, again, I'd be looking at Bitcoin's price potentially coming all the way back down here to these levels down here that we just kind of mentioned a moment ago, and, you know, obviously taking a trade from there. So again, I hope this video helps. I know it's kind of a bit indecisive, but that's just where we're at in the market right now. There's not a whole lot of volatility. There's not a whole lot of information to go off of. I see an argument for Bitcoin definitely moving to the downside, but, you know, sometimes the market has a funny way of going the opposite way on you, and it's going to happen like that. Technical analysis, while it's great, it helps give you an idea. There are times where it's just never going to be 100% accurate. So again, keep a tight stop loss, dig into the charts, try to find an edge. If you guys have any questions, let me know. I'd be happy to answer them the best that I can. See y'all in the next one. Peace.